Today what we're going to be doing is sewing some scrunchies and just talking about the year so far and what I want to do with the rest of my year. Hi everyone and welcome to another video of mine. I'm still new, so I'm going to be saying for probably like the first 10 videos that if there's anything I can improve on, please let me know in the comments. Today we're outside and it's really hot, so I have the fan above me on. So I'm going to try my best to reduce the noise in the editing process, but I don't have a microphone yet, so if it's kind of noisy, please forgive me. So I have a little bit of sewing experience. I am definitely not skilled in any way, but I do kind of know how the machine works. I've had a few classes and this was given to me by my gran. A while ago, I thought I saw a tutorial on how to make scrunchies on the sewing machine so you have no visible edges, but then I tried and I couldn't remember exactly how to do it and it started taking too long and I got overwhelmed and so I gave up. And so now I'm going to try redeem those while we have a bit of a chat in this video. I've made more than 3 scrunchies before, but some of them have gotten lost as hairbands do and some of them I gave to my sister, especially ones like this, because before it was dirty and old, this material looked quite nice. So I should have more of this material that I'm using today, and I have some other material. So you can see this is the way I used to do it. There's a long straight stitch that was quite wonky when I sewed it along the length of the fabric, and then I'd flip this inside out, put an elastic in it, and sew the ends together by hand. But then that stitching was visible and I didn't really like it, so I wanted to try figure out a different way. So I just rewatched the tutorial and it says that I did pretty much everything right, except for the fact that I sewed the elastic together before completely flipping this inside out, because I think it's just making it harder to flip the fabric inside out. So I'm going to try unpick this and be successful this time. I have a couple different ones, like this is the fabric where just the short ends are sewed together, but the long ends haven't been sewn yet and the elastic isn't in. And these are ones where I was struggling afterwards to flip this one inside out. So I tried to flip these inside out without the elastic, and I'm still struggling to flip these inside out. Okay, so I just rewatched the tutorial again, and turns out I did do something wrong in the first step. Apparently, you have your sides like this, so you've sewn the short edges together, and then what you do is you make like a top and a bottom and fold the top in as small as possible and only sew the bottom, and then you kind of have a little loop. And yeah, I don't fully understand it, but I did something wrong, so that's why I can figure it out, because I did something wrong. So I'm going to have to unstitch these so I can actually use them. It's frustrating, but at least I know what I did wrong. Okay, so in theory this should be done, and now I just need to string the thread through the hole and then flip the scrunchie inside out through the unsewed parts. When I did it last time, I thought the hole and the unsewed part were going to be the same thing, and so I was trying to put the scrunchie in there and flip it out through there, and so I think it was actually just an impossible task that I misunderstood. I never measured the elastic properly. I just wrap it around my wrist to make it roughly the size of my wrist and then cut it there, because I like being able to wear these on my wrist without feeling like I'm slowly stretching out the elastic. So that's just what I do. Okay, so for this she used something called a bodkin, but I don't have a bodkin, so I'm using an old s'mores skewer and hoping it doesn't poke a hole in my material, but I think I'm gonna be fine. Okay, it's all the way through, so now I just need to sew the elastic and then hopefully be able to flip this and finish sewing. These people always just tie a knot in their elastic, but I don't think that's secure enough. So I used to hand stitch the elastic closed, but now that I'm using a sewing machine, I just would rather sew it. It's such a small amount, so it's fidgety, and it might not be the best for my sewing machine to sew such a small amount each time, but it's just so much faster than hand sewing. I've had such a busy day so far. I woke up at 8 in the morning, which I'm on university holiday, so is early for me. And I went and dropped a painting I've just finished painting off at a photo tech place where they take your passport photos, professionally print your photos and frame your photos for you. And I was hoping I could get it stretched onto a canvas, but they said, one, it's bad to try stretch a painting on a canvas when it's already been painted because you could crack the paint, and two, the borders of my canvas material weren't wide enough to be able to stretch onto a canvas, so I'm just getting it framed. I needed to go wash my car after that and fill it up with petrol. And it's so hot where I get my car washed, and there's not much seating. So you always end up sitting in your car for as long as you can, but then you feel like you're baking in an oven. And it's just so like unpleasant because you're sweaty and you can't do what you want to do at home because you're just like sitting in your car, and it's a lot less productive of a place to be. And so I was just sitting waiting to be able to come home again, and now I'm finally home. Okay, so now sewing the elastic is done. I just need to trim all these threads and flip it right side out, and hopefully I'll have a new scrunchie. So it's now the end of January, and I'm not sure whether you guys set yourself New Year's resolutions or not, but I kind of set myself New Year's resolutions. I don't ever call them New Year's resolutions because I'm not specifically trying to get them done by the end of the year. But the start of something is always a nice time to start a new idea you want to do, whether it's the start of the month, the start of the week, or the start of the year. And because the start of the year is like the biggest one, it's when most people want to start like changing their life, getting fit, learning a language, stuff like that. So I've set myself a couple goals. They're not always big goals. One of them is just, I might be moving away at the end of the year. I might be moving countries, and I have quite a lot of nail polish, and I don't want to have to take all my nail polish with me. So one of my goals is to paint my nails a lot this year. And while my nails don't look painted, they have a clear nail polish on them. So even though they don't look pretty, they're still painted. Another one of my goals is to read one physical book every month, because last year I set myself the goal of reading a book every month, which I achieved, but I didn't read any of my actual books. And I have 2 bookshelves with a bunch of books that I haven't read just sitting on them. And I read a whole bunch of digital books and online books last year. So I didn't really make any progress in actually organizing my room and getting rid of books I've read that I don't want to permanently keep. But I'm currently filming this on the 30th of January, and I hadn't started reading a book yet for January. So when I was at the car wash, I found the shortest book I owned, and I brought that with me. And it's only like 96 pages long, and I'm already on, I'd say, somewhere in the 40s. So I'm about halfway through. And so as long as I spend some of today or some of tomorrow reading this book, I should still be able to finish a book by the end of January. Another goal I have is I recently started teaching on this online tutoring platform called Preply. I'm teaching a whole bunch of people who don't know how to speak English how to speak English. And one of my goals is to become a super tutor at some point in the year. It basically shows that you're a dedicated tutor that Preply can trust. And so they promote you to a bunch of students who are looking to learn English because they know that you can trust that you'll teach them. Speaking of language learning, the place I might be moving to at the end of the year is South Korea, just because I want to go teach English to foreign language students in person. And on all the websites that speak about it, they recommend South Korea as one of the top 3 places to go. Most of the time, it's the top place to go. So I just figured I'd go to the best place if I'm going at all. And I wanted to go somewhere that lived a different way that I do and spoke a different language to me. Because if I'm moving across the world, overseas, away from my family, I don't want to feel like I'm just in a different type of South Africa. I want to feel like I've made a big move and not get so used to the country straight away because everyone just speaks English. So because I might be moving to South Korea at the end of the year, I've kind of started learning Korean on Duolingo. But I want to take actual tutoring lessons from someone who speaks Korean on platforms like italki or Preply or any of the other ones. There's so many. But the lessons can actually be quite expensive, because if they say you want to get somewhere proficient or able to handle conversations by the end of the year, you need to take like 3-hour-long lessons per week, and that gets very expensive. So I'm just going to try do hour-long lessons on Duolingo until I change my mind and see how helpful that is. If you want to learn a new language and want a tutor to help you, because that is the fastest and most effective way to learn, then I have a friend code or a reference code that gets you 33% off your first lesson on Preply, and I'll put that in the description down below. My only hassle now is I'm trying to fold these edges so I can get this sewn up nicely, but it's just such a flimsy material that it's moving around so much. Okay, so this is how I finished this one off. The threading is white and like brown, so it is quite visible, but it's my first one and I'm proud I finally finished it. Now I can try do it better on the next one. Now in the rest of my scrunchies, I got much further in the sewing process than that one, so I'm gonna have to unstitch them and restitch them in order to get this thing fixed. I much prefer learning how to sew when I can take a class with someone who can teach me, but the person who I was taking classes with has kind of just stopped doing lessons. There was a time when she was doing a bunch of lessons that I couldn't attend because they were always like on a public holiday or on a day when I was already busy. But I've messaged her a couple times now asking her when she's going to have another lesson. And she always asks me what lesson I want to have. And I suggest 2 lessons. And she just never responds to me and never messages on the sewing group that she's hosting classes. So I'm not sure if she even does them anymore. I much prefer learning by taking classes because it's just so much nicer knowing that the progress I'm making is correct, and whenever I have mistakes or things I don't know, I can just ask someone who's right there who knows in real time. When you don't take classes, the things you don't know, you don't always know how to explain that you don't know them or why you don't know them. So you end up Googling random things that aren't relevant and don't help you. And it just takes much longer and is so frustrating. But I don't have the money to take all the classes I want to take. Like I'd love to take dance classes and more than one type of dance. I'd love to take Latin and ballroom. I'd love to take hip hop. I'd love to take like belly dancing or pole dancing, all those types of dancing, and just at least try them out to see if I like them. But you run out of time quickly and you run out of money quickly. I definitely need like a sugar buddy or like a sugar pal or a sugar friend. If you want to pay for dancing classes for me or find a sewing class that you can pay for me, please let me know in the comments. I might just need to start again with this one and cut off the parts that have been sewed and just have a small scrunchie. Okay, so it's been quite slow up until this point. I've only gotten the one done, but now that I know what I'm doing and where I'm going wrong, I think I can speed up. Yeah, so when using this method, you are going to have a big unsewed section because the entire folded inside is unsewed. So you don't need to leave an unsewed section on the outside. Just remember that when you go to flip it around, there is the hole that you can flip it through on the inside, not outside. If you guys had a bunch of money, what would you spend it on? And I'm not saying like helping out your family and donating to charity. I'm saying the stuff that you'd buy for yourself. What would you spend on yourself? I'd spend money on taking lessons like sewing lessons, cooking lessons, language lessons, dancing lessons, things like that. But I think I also need to buy a microphone and its little windshield. So if I'm filming more videos, you won't hear the fan or the wind or the people in the background. I think I forgot to backstitch the first time, so hopefully this thread doesn't come out. So this is my sewing box. It's actually originally supposed to be a toolbox, but it was my mom's old sewing box before she got my grand's sewing box. So when my mom got my grand's sewing box, she gave me her sewing box. And so I got some things passed down, but I've got some things myself. My grand's sewing box is much prettier, but this one has many more compartments and is much more organized. It's the end of the video and I was successful. I sewed 4 scrunchies that were pink, 4 scrunchies that are like the black floral, and I adjusted the top so it fit me a bit better. So thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye. This was so difficult. I even went and poured myself a drink. Very much alcoholic.